I'm drawn to a quote in your piece by Matthew Tuttle. I've talked to him before. He's kind of an ETF guy. And he says to you, this is an insane amount of trades. As you leafed through those 100 pages of filings, what stood out to you immediately about what was therein?
And this is a story I worked on with Bill Ellison in our Washington, D.C. bureau, as well as other reporters in D.C. And so when you're looking at this amount of trades, over 3,700, typically you wouldn't see that for someone's personal account, even though it is, of course, President Donald Trump's.
Leader of the free world.
Exactly.
The other part that flagged to me was that that's like over 40 per day.
And also, even if you include just trading days, it would be even higher than that, probably in the 50s, 60s. And so when you're talking to people who are running RIAs, and I want to be clear here because you don't know exactly behind this, even if it is an RIA that was making those transactions, because the Trump organization said that they have an independent third party that's managing this and that it is an automated process. But when you're speaking with people who are managing money, especially decades on Wall Street, for even high net worth individuals, you normally don't see that frequency and that type of volume of transaction, even just in a quarter alone. Typically, they have things set in place to where you wouldn't have to make that many transactions because your portfolio is supposed to be more bulletproof, despite what happens if there are gyrations in financial markets.
Before we dig into this more, read a statement here from the White House. They dismissed questions about potential conflicts. David Ingalls saying that Trump only acts in the best interest of the American public. He added there are no conflicts of interest. We have a spokesperson for the Trump Organization saying the president's holdings are independently managed, as you mentioned, by a third party. Financial institutions have control over all of these investment decisions with trades executed through automated processes. That aside, what kind of trades did we see here? We mentioned those tech companies at the top. What stood out to you in terms of what was actually traded?
Well, these are typically companies that the Trump administration is well known to have business dealings with, especially on the back of his visit in Beijing, especially with NVIDIA, is obviously listed in here, as well as Meta, Microsoft, Amazon, as well as you see other things with Costco and Dollar Tree. But what's interesting about this, and you go through the filings, it's hard to distinguish whether specifically for some of these trades, whether it's specifically toward a stock, whether it's municipal bonds, because we've seen other disclosures from this past year where, say in the fourth quarter of last year, it was around 380 different trades. So you went from that at the end of last year, many fewer, but still elevated, right? If you think compared to what people typically would do in high net worth individuals for those types of movements there. So it's hard to distinguish specifically if it was unloading specific stocks, whether it was NVIDIA or Meta. But even if when I'm speaking with people managing money, some of it doesn't quite make sense because some of those stocks and how they've performed since the end of March, say Amazon on a stellar run, especially in April. I mean, we've seen it up double digits at this point, but then Meta a bit more mixed. So say if you are talking to people managing money, why not just buy and hold something? And so maybe that raises a lot of their questions because they're wondering, well, is it more like an algo? Is it multiple money managers and financial advisors? We don't necessarily know that just now.
I'm going to step back and ask a series of stupid questions. Why don't we know who or what is exactly making these trades? Is this legal? Is it precedented? And there's information that doesn't show on disclosures. What is that?
Typically, when you see prior presidents, it's normally a blind trust and an independent financial advisor.
I have it here. I think Obama did treasury bills and a diversified mutual fund, and Biden apparently didn't trade stocks.
Right, and Bill Clinton also had a blind advisor, as well as President Herbert Walker Bush. So what's interesting here, there was a Stock Act, I believe it was back in 2012, and it would be triggered particularly by a certain amount. And President Donald Trump is the first one to do that. So he started disclosing that. We started seeing that beginning in last August. So most of it's been,
you have to disclose it.
As far as if it triggers it by a certain amount. And so he's the first one to do that. And most of it's been more toward municipal bonds. I mean, we saw that toward the end of last year. This is a little bit more question because we're wondering, well, is it still municipal bonds that they're doing? And you can't necessarily, when you're going through all of this, see specifically whether this is a derivative, whether this is a stock, whether this is a bond. So there are those questions about just the volume of those trades, what exactly is going on there, and if it is automated process, like the Trump organization was saying, but people still are wondering because you don't normally see that in high net worth individual accounts.
And you can't see the exact timing, right?
Well, there actually is. On February 10th, there was a number of transactions with some of these big tech names, NVIDIA included, and then about a week later, obviously, there was different deals and things being made with NVIDIA. So that was something that raised some eyebrows among people on Wall Street. But again, we still need more information because it doesn't necessarily dictate and lay out all of that in these regulatory filings.
I'm going to make an observation, a long-winded one, and then you can comment on it if you'd like. That is,
get comfortable. Here we go.
You have a president now who is meeting with these executives in a way that past presidents haven't. talking about these companies, in some cases getting the U.S. government involved in private companies in a way that we haven't seen either. I think of Intel in particular. Were I his independent investor operating in some capacity away from the president, he may not be directing me to make trades, but it is not difficult for me or for you or you to ascertain sort of what companies he's interested in, where you see movement as a result of that. It's just there's a novelty in the projection of what might be of interest to this president, and obviously you're able to see the reaction as he talks about these companies in the market in real time.
I mean, if you're a stock guy, you see him getting onto the plane with all these execs, you just like start clicking through, right?
It's not even telegraphed. It's just there. It's there, plain and simple, for you to see.
And you see, based on these meetings that he's had with all of these executives, especially on the back of what was going on with his visit in Beijing, and again, to make it clear, we don't know that President Donald Trump was actually making these transactions too, or whether his sons were doing that as well, because we know his two older sons oversee a large swath of his financial portfolio. But they're making it clear by the Trump organization that this is a third party and supposed to be an automated process. But to your point, David, when you're thinking about the meetings that the Trump administration has with these big executives, that's why some people on Wall Street more so are wondering, well, what do we not know? When you're the president of the United States, you have so much at your disposal. They're wondering, well, what information do we not have and what type of trades we're making?
Can I get one last question in on that point? So you brought up the fact that I think this, and somebody said this to you, like Adam Saran said this to you, wondering sort of how these trades meted out in the end. Were they positive or negative? My question to you going forward is, what don't you know that you want to know going forward, and what are you going to be watching for here as we get to future quarters of releases?
And when's part 2 coming in?
Right, and Adam Sarhan of 50 Park Investments, I mean, he made that point because he said, I would like to see the account. Was this negative or positive by the end of this? Because when I brought up Meta's mixed performance, I mean, it doesn't quite make sense because it wasn't at least like that was a great trade
Also,
if you
all
did
those
sell
tech
all of
stocks
that.
had a bad week after
Right.
that trip.
And then the other thing Adam was pointing out, as well as many others, you can't really say anything illegal happened based on these filings. You have to be very careful with that because, again, it doesn't specifically disclose all of this was stock, whether all of this was municipal bonds. You have to be careful when you're looking at these regulatory filings. We're just seeing there's a massive volume of those trades, and that's what people are wondering, what's going on beneath the hood there.
Jess Menton, great job on this story. The whole team, kudos to the whole team. I have seen this absolutely everywhere. It ran through Twitter like wildfire, and really good old school work.
Yes.
Congratulations.